Good afternoon. Today in this tutorial we're going to go over how to create a Coke can from a reference. So if you're one of my students, you can hop onto your OneNote and get access to the files. Otherwise, you can check the link in the description and download them from there. Alright, so you can move on. We're going to be in Maya 2016. And we're using Maya 2016 because this is what we have in the classroom. Alright, so let's go to our Polygons tab and we'll start creating our image plane. I'm going to use this plane here. That's this little square. Go ahead and drop it in. And I'm going to press F to frame up. And then over to my right, I have my channel box. And in here, I'm going to make some adjustments to my properties. If you don't see your channel box, you can come all the way up to the right. There's this little icon, looks like 3 little pages. You can click that and it will open your channel box for you. I'm going to scroll down to Inputs. Move this down some. In my inputs, I have my width and my height, and I have my subdivisions width and height. So the subdivisions are these lines that are cut into our model here. We're not going to need these for this particular image, so I'm just going to go ahead and take those down to 1. That's going to make it nice and clean. And then my width and my height, that's going to be determined by the image itself. So if I open, let's go to my desktop here. Where did I put the Coke can? Okay, here's the Coke can, and I need the texture. Okay, so with both of these here, if I hover over, it's going to give me a little dialog there. And you can see my dimensions are 300 by 516. So I'm going to come down to Maya, and in here, if I type in 300 by 516, I'm going to get a very, very big image. Now this might be too big for some of your screens, so I'm going to use a percentage of this, which is really just going to take the last digit off. So I'm going to do 30 by 51. So 30 by 51. There we go. And that's going to give me something close to the size of what I need. So I have the dimensions, and now I need to put the color on here. So I'm going to go up to rendering and come down to one of these gray little spheres here. I'm going to choose the one in the middle. This is a Lambert. You can see Lambert has no reflection, so it's going to make it easy to do the modeling off of this. I won't have any glare or anything like that. So hit that. And then I'm going to come over to the right. And if you didn't get your materials opened up, you can come over to the right. Make sure you're in the attributes. Again, if you don't see the attributes here, it's this guy right in the middle of the hammer and the toolkit, and that'll open up the attributes. We'll come down to Lambert 2. If you see Lambert 1, you have not done something, so go back up, make sure you select this, and then click to add a new one. You don't want to use the default. If you use the default, you'll get in trouble. So come down here, we're going to change this. We're going to call this Coke. That's good enough. And then for color, I'm going to go over to the little checker box, hit that, go to File, and then Folder. My stuff's on the desktop, so just go there. For you guys, it's most likely going to be in your downloads. I'll go ahead and hit Open. I'm going to select my object, and then I have to press the 6 key to bring up the color. So there we go, press 6, and there's the color. If you had any issues, just back up the video and follow it again. Okay, so you can see how my Coke can is not perfectly aligned with the image plane that I created. To fix that, let's make sure we're in modeling. That's modeling over here. And then UVs. And we'll come down to planar. I'll hit the little options box. And I'm just going to take a projection of this from the top. So if you look at the compass here, little compass down at the bottom, left-hand corner. So this direction going this way, this is our Z direction. This one going this way is our X direction. So this is forward and back. This is left and right. And then up and down is Y. So if I look at this, this is facing up and down. I'm going to go ahead and choose my Y and then hit project. And that's going to take a picture of it, nice and center for us. But now I am in face mode. You can see I'm selecting the face of the object, and the object has this blue highlight. I want to be in object mode, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on it. You got to hold down the button. Just go to object mode. It's also F8. F8 is also the hotkey for that. Go ahead and select it. I'm going to go all the way to the right, choose my channel box. And I want to make sure that this is in the correct position, because a Coke can isn't usually laying down. They usually stand up. So I'm going to go over to my channel box, and go to my rotation in the x-axis. And I'll go ahead and type in 90 degrees, so 90. That's going to stand it up. And then if I come over to my translate Y, you can see my object here is halfway through the ground. I don't know about you, but physics usually says that the Coke can should not be in the ground. So I'm going to go up to my translate Y, and I'm going to do, let's see, if I come down to my polyplane, my height is 51, right? But if I type in 51 here, it's going to be too high because this is halfway through. I'm going to take half of 51. So half of 50 is 25, and half of 1 is 0.5. So I'm going to go to here, type in 25.5, and that'll put me directly on the line. Look at that. Awesome. So it's 25.5. So I'm halfway there. I don't want to start modeling with this just yet because I can accidentally move this. I want this to stay here so I can model something else. So first, let's move it out of the way. I'm going to hit the W key. That's going to bring up my move tool. Then I'm going to drag the arrow back just some distance. It doesn't really matter how far back, just so long as you're not in the middle. And then I'm going to come back down to where it says display, and then layers. Go ahead and create a layer from selected. That's the second option here. Create layer from selected. Now I'm going to have a layer down here, and you can see I have V, P, and then a clear box. So V is for visibility, and then I'm going to come over to the clear box, press it once. That's going to give me a template, but I can't see anything, so I'm going to click it one more time. That's going to give me a little R for reference. And now if I click off, I cannot accidentally grab my object. Okay, so that's going to be nice and locked for me. So let's go back up to polygons. And before we move forward, let's save this. Let's go to File. All right. So now that we have the basic setup out of the way, we're going to start modeling the can. So we're going to start with a basic shape. If you think about the shape of the can is a cylinder. So I'm going to come up to the top here, look for which primitive matches a cylinder. There it is. So there's my cylinder. Let's go into a front view. I'm going to press the space bar, and then I'm going to take my mouse to the middle here of the front view. You can see front, and then press space bar again. If you find that when you press space bar nothing opens, you can also come over to the left and click the 4 view, which is this 4 little windows here, and that'll also open up your 4 view. Then you can hover your mouse over front, press spacebar again. Now I just have to bring my color back up. That is 6, so that brings my color up. I'm going to select my cylinder, and I'm going to size it up. So under Inputs, Polycylinder, take my radius. I'm going to select the word radius, take my mouse out to the middle here, and just press in on the mouse wheel. That's going to give me this little arrow, and I can just drag to get my radius. I'm going to eyeball it to the size of the can there. I'm not going out to the picture because the picture is too big. I'm going to go to the size of the can. Same thing, I go to the height, and I start making this tall enough. Then you might have to move your cylinder, so I'm just going to go ahead and press W. That's going to let me move my cylinder up some. And then I'm going to continue, go ahead and select my height again, continue sizing that up. It's probably good enough. Now I'm running into a problem, which is I have the right size and the right radius, but I can't see what I'm working on. So what I can do is I can right click on my Coke can, or on the cylinder, sorry. Right click on my cylinder, come down to Material Attributes. It's going to open up Material Attributes, and you can see that my Coke can is using the default. This is Lambert 1. So Lambert 1 is always the default. You really don't want to change this too much. But I'm going to come down to Transparency, and I'm just going to drag Transparency up. And now I can kind of see through my Coke can. Cool. I'm going to select my can. I'm going to zoom in here. Now to move around in here, it's Alt and then middle mouse click. That lets you pan. Alt and right mouse click lets you dolly. The mouse wheel lets you zoom in and out. And Alt and left click does nothing because you cannot turn. You can see right here, orthographic views cannot be tumbled, so I can't rotate, which is fine because we just want to be straight on. So on my can, I have 3 green lines. See this? 1, 2, 3. These are guides to kind of help us make this can. From this guide here to this guide down here, you can see the can is straight. There's no change in the shape. But from this guide up to this guide, we have an angle. And from this guide to that guide, we have an angle. So that means we have to create a cut here, or a subdivision, that will let us get that angle. Because if I try moving this now, if I go into vertex mode and try moving this now, grab my scale tool, I'm going to scale everything, and I don't want that. Okay? So I have to create a cut. To do that, let me go back to object mode. I'm going to come up to mesh tools. If you don't see mesh tools up here or any of the mesh items, just make sure we're still in modeling. Okay? So have mesh tools, come down to insert edge loop, and I'm going to start at the top here, and I'm going to add an edge loop. So I'm going to come down to my 3rd green line. I'm going to bring my edge loop tool to one of these edges and just click. There it goes. It's going to make a cut for me. Once I make the cut, I'm going to select the vertices up here and move them. So you can see I still have my cutting tool. I'm going to go ahead and press F9 to bring up vertex mode. So go ahead and bring up vertex mode. I'm going to press Q to get rid of my little arrow here. That's going to go back to my pointer. I'm going to select this top row. And all I'm doing is dragging. I'm left clicking and dragging. So left click and drag, left click and drag. It's dragging out this selection box. I'm going to grab my scaling tool. That's this one to the left here. Or I can press the R key. So now I get my scaling boxes. You got this box, that one, and that one. You do not want to use this box or that box. You want to use the middle box. Because if I use this red box here, I only scale it that way. If I use this green box, nothing's really going to happen. And if I use the blue box, I'm only scaling this way. Okay? What I want to use is the middle box. So if I come down here, you can see I have the light blue. This one's a dark blue. See? It's a dark blue box. And grab the one in the middle. I'm going to drag that one in to the point where the edge of my line meets the top of the can. See that? So there's my angle. And if I look, I've scaled in all the directions. So that's that middle one there. Do the same thing to the bottom. So I'm going to scroll out, come down to the bottom. I'm going to get my edge loop tool, so mesh tools, insert edge loop. Now come down to my line here. So from the bottom, 1, 2, 3. You can see where the edge is going to change here. I'm going to add my edge loop. Press Q to get rid of my tool. And then go back into vertex mode. That's F9. Or you can hold right click like I'm doing. And then select it there. I'm going to select this bottom row of vertices. Press R to bring up my scale tool. I'm going to take the middle and drag that in to where it looks like I'm at the bottom edge of the can. Now the bottom edge of the can does curve. You see that curve? But that's just a perspective of taking a picture of a round object. So I'm not too worried about that. But this should be close enough. Okay, so that's my first cut here, second cut here. So now I'm starting to look like a can. So let's add in the next couple cuts. First cut I'm going to add is going to be right here at the lip of the can. You can see this lip of the can should be pretty straight, but it's going at an angle. So I'm going to get my insert edge loop tool. So mesh tools, insert edge loop. I'm going to add a loop right here at the edge of the can. You can see I have a line here that kind of denotes that. This green edge is for the top of the can here. So I'm going to go ahead and just add that line. I'm going to get my scale tool. Go back into vertex mode here. Now, you can use the line that's there, but I'm going to go ahead and select it anyway. And then I'll grab the middle, just bring that in. That's going to straighten out the top edge of this can. And I'm going to bring this edge up by using my move tool. So grab my move tool, that's W. I'm going to bring that up nice and tight to where the edge of the can is. See that? So it's kind of like drawing between the lines, except we're doing it in 3D. And then I need one more piece, which is right here. You can see the can kind of curves a little bit. So I'm going to get my edge loop tool again, insert edge loop. Go ahead and add my loop in the middle here. Get my scale tool and vertex mode. Select these. And this is going to curve out just a tad. So if I go this way, I curve in. If I go that way, I kind of curve out. Okay. Come down to the bottom, and I have to fix the bottom piece. So kind of like the top, but I don't have like a rim down here that I have to worry about, but I do have this curve that goes inward. So I'll grab my edge loop tool. The hotkey for the last thing you've used is the Y key. So the last tool I've used was my edge loop tool. So if I press Y, it'll bring the edge loop tool back. Okay. It only works on the last thing you selected. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just click. There's my edge. Hit Q to get rid of my tool. And then vertex mode. Go ahead and select my edge. Scale tool. Let's go ahead and drag that in. Look at that. Okay, so now I have that inner taper. I'm going to zoom out, go back into my perspective, and here's my object. So now that I have my basic shape of my can made, let's go back into object mode. That's F8, or you can right-click on the object and go to object mode. Go ahead and select that. I'm going to come over to my material attributes. I'm going to take the transparency back to normal, so all the way back to 0. And I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. So channel box, let's turn our Coke can layer off. I no longer need it. So now it comes to making this look more like a can. So the top of this and the bottom. Let's do the bottom first. So the bottom of a Coke can kind of curves up and in. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom, go to vertex mode. I'm going to select this middle vertex. You see that middle guy? And grab that. W brings up the move tool. And I want to curve this up in just a little bit. See that? So that'll give me a little bit of a dent on the bottom. That's kind of how the can is shaped. Now the can usually has one more extra edge, but we're trying to keep it simple, so that's fine. I'm going to come to the top now. And I need to do something similar to the top, but if you look at the top of a Coke can, there's a rim here, and then you have a tab. So I'm going to make a rim for the can. To do that, I'm going to go to face mode. So I'm going to right click, go to face mode, and I can select these faces. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, and then select these faces. If you have your tool in the way, if this is in your way, just press Q to get rid of that. And hold shift, and you can see as I hold shift there's a little plus sign next to it. If I hold control, there's a minus sign, so the control lets me remove, while shift lets me add to my selection. So I'm going to go around and just select these. Be very careful to not drag a selection, because if you drag a selection, you're going to select through your object, which you don't want. Okay? And you can use Control Z to back up. So Control Z lets me go backwards. I'm going to go ahead and select the rest of these. And a pro tip, if you don't want to sit there and click every one, to the right, or sorry, to the left here, we have this little paintbrush looking thing. This will paint a selection. So if I get that, it's kind of big. If I hold down the B key and then scale that down, keep going. There we go. And now I can click and paint the selection. And that's a lot faster than clicking everything. This is your paint selection tool right here. Okay. Once you have your selection, just make sure, look around your can, that you didn't get anything extra. Okay. Make sure you didn't get anything extra. I'm going to press Q to get rid of my paint selection. That goes back to my arrow. And with this top area selected, I'm going to come up to the middle of my polygons tab. So polygons, come up to around the middle, right around here. You can see we have a knife, we have this little dot thing, and then right here in the middle we have a little plane with a tower in the middle. This is our extrude tool. If I press extrude, I'm going to get this new little widget. So it's got a circle and then my crosshair. See that? If I come up to, you have an arrow and you have a box. If I click on the box, let it go, come down to the middle box, grab that, move it in, look at that, I'm making an edge, an extra loop in here. See that? I'm going to go ahead and hit extrude one more time. So I'm going to come to extrude one more time. You can see we get an adjustment on our tool. I'm going to grab the arrow this time, so this top blue arrow, I'm going to pull that down. And now I have the edge of my can. Look at that. Amazing. Let's go ahead and go back to object mode. So now I have the top and bottom of the can. Let's go ahead and save this. So there's the basic shape of the can. Now let's make it look like a can. To do that, we have to add the color. So let's go ahead and open up our rendering tool. So rendering. I'm going to add one of my colors here. Coke cans tend to be a bit shiny, so let's go ahead and get something that looks like metal. Let's do, I think I'll grab this one here. It's called a blend. I'm going to come over to my material attributes. Again, if you don't see it here, you can click these little arrows. That'll get you all the way to the end. And it is all the way at the end of your stuff. It's the last thing in the list. Or you can right click on your object and go to material attributes. So this is my blend. I'm going to call this Coke Texture. Coke Texture. It doesn't like spaces, just so you know. I'm going to come down to color, grab my checker box, file, and I'm going to load in the Coke can color that I also downloaded. So Coke Texture. Here it is. Go ahead and open that. So now that's applied, but that doesn't look like a Coke can, does it? No. We got to fix the UVs. So whenever we make an object, we have to modify the UVs. So I'm going to select it, make sure we're in object mode. If you're not sure, just go ahead and right click on it and choose object mode. Go up top to UVs. If you don't see UVs, make sure we're in modeling. I'm going to open up the UV editor. And here's my UV editor. You can see it's a little hard to see everything. I'm going to come over to right here. You can see there's a little picture like a mountain. And there's one right below it. This one makes it darker so I can see easier. There's that. Okay. And if you don't like the grid lines, you can turn the grid off. That's this little hashtag looking thing here. So I'm going to turn my grid off. And I have this top section, this bottom section, and then this thing right here. These are UVs. Conveniently, these are cut for us. So I'm going to go ahead and select each UV shell individually. So I'm going to go up to the top one, I'm going to right click, go to UVs, and you can see if I double click on this, it'll select all the UVs for this part. If I double click on this one, it selects the UVs for this part, and if I double click on the bottom piece, it selects the UVs for that part. It's pretty convenient, right? So I need to make sure that these are all the correct pieces, right? So if I look at the bottom here, the bottom of a Coke can, this part here is usually silver. And you can see I only have this part of the UV, but I actually need part of this one as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into face mode. So I'm going to right click on this, go to face mode. I'm going to go into my front view by pressing spacebar. Spacebar again. I'm going to zoom in on here. I'm going to drag out a selection box, and I'm just going to select this bottom group. See that? When I let go, I'm going to get the circle, because that's the very bottom of this, and I'm also going to get this bottom edge right here. You see that? And for this, I want to do what's called a projection. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to select UVs, come down to planar. So you have cylindrical, which will take a picture of a cylinder. We do have one. You have spherical, which will take the UVs of a cylinder or of a sphere. And then you have planar, which usually takes the UVs of something from one direction, from a flat side. You almost always want your UVs to be flat. So I'm just going to go up to planar, go to the options, and the bottom of the can is in the Y direction. So I'll go ahead and hit apply this time. If you hit project, it'll just close the window. So I'll just hit apply. And you can see here that it did take a projection of the bottom. I'm going to grab the circle in the middle and just going to pull that off. So there are the UVs for that. And I want to get the UVs for the top of the can as well. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to come up to the top here. And I have the lip of the can and the inner circle, right? So I'm going to go ahead, face mode. I'm going to select the lip of the can. And you can see I didn't quite get all of it. Some of this I didn't get. So I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit deeper. So I'm going to go a little bit further in, like so. So now I got this, but I have one extra row. I don't want that extra row. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and you can see I get a little minus sign. And if I drag my selection box just to the edge of this highlighted part and drop it, you can see I lose that edge. So I only want this lip and these right here. You see that? And if I go into my perspective, you can see that as well. So I have this inner lip, this top edge, and the outer edge. Okay? And now I'm going to do my projection for that. So I'm going to go up to UVs, planar, get my options. Again, the top of this is going to be in the Y direction. This time I'll hit project. That'll close my window for me. Here's my projection. Now this projection isn't perfect, and I'll tell you why. So this edge and the inner edge, these are actually overlapping. So if I move this off over here, I go to UV mode, so I'm going to right click UVs. If I select one of these and move it, grab my move tool and move it, you can see I have UVs on top of UVs. You never want UVs overlapping. So what we're going to do is unfold this. So I'm going to Control Z that just a little bit, back there. I'm going to double click on this, make sure I'm in UVs. If you don't see the green dots, make sure you're in UV mode, and then double click. Come up to polygons, this little tab here. I'm going to come down to unfold, hit the options box. I want to make sure in the unfold options that I'm using unfold 3D. If you don't see unfold 3D, don't worry, we can add that. So if you don't see unfold 3D, go up to window, settings and preferences, and then plugin manager. And they're all alphabetical, so if you scroll down to the bottom, just make sure that unfold 3D is checked, so that's loaded and auto-loaded. Once you check those, you can hit close, and then you can reopen your unfold options, and it should be there. So just make sure that that's there. I'm going to uncheck this pack button. What pack does is that it's going to move the UVs when I hit the button. I don't want these to move, I want to move them myself. And then I'm going to hit apply. And you can see this all unfolds. So now I have more rings. I've got the top of the can. I've got this first edge, which is this edge right here. I've got this top piece right here, that's this. And then I have this edge here, which is this edge. So now I have all my UVs. Okay? Go ahead and close my UV projector, little planar map. And I'm going to zoom in on this. Let's see, what's going to be the easiest way? Let's move this piece first. I'm going to double click on the body of the can. I'm going to zoom in. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to move this arrow down. If you can't move it, make sure you have your move tool selected. Let's move tool over here. You can also use W. W brings up the move tool. Take this down, make it kind of center. Get my scale tool, that's R. I'm going to scale this out. And you can see in the live view down here, as I'm scaling and mapping my UVs to the picture, my Coke can has taken shape. So I'm making this out. Take this one up. I need to move it down some because I don't have enough room, so I'm going to move it down. So W, move it down. Go back to R so I can scale it. Look at that. Coke can's taken form. So now that I have the body of the can done, oh, it's very important that you're not outside of this UV window. Okay, you don't want your UVs to go outside this window. Okay. So like you wouldn't want to do this. This would be bad. Okay. You want to make sure that it's tight up against the edge, but not overlapping. Okay, now I'm going to take the top UVs. I'm going to double click. This is my top section. Grab my scale tool, use the middle, drag that down. I'm going to move this, so move tool, grab the middle. I'm going to center this on top of the top of the can picture. So here we go. Let's take a look at it in the 3D view. So the edge of the can isn't the prettiest. Let me go ahead and just dial that back just a little bit more. It's probably close enough. There's the top of the can with the tab. And I'm going to do the bottom of the can. So I'm going to grab the bottom of the can, double click on it. Let's move it into position. Let's take a look at the bottom, make sure we're getting what we need. Scale it. And here's the bottom of the can. And now I have a Coke can. So let's go back into object mode. You can see our UVs are lined up. That's good. We no longer need our UV window. Go ahead and close that. And here's my can. So if I look at my can, I've got Coke, I've got the rim of the can, I've got the tab. Although this tab's kind of big, isn't it? And then I have the bottom of the can. So now you have created your first game object. Congratulations. Go ahead and save it, and I will see you in the next video.